Hello, everybody. Nevers here. Welcome to another episode of Git Room. Today I have Marc, the founder of Papermark, which is an alternative to DocSend. How are you, Marc?
Hey Nevo, I'm great. Great to be on here.
Cool. So, Marc, maybe before we start, you can tell us a little bit about what Papermark is, because I'm not sure everybody knows what DocSend is.
Yeah, 100%. I've come to know this as well. So Papermark is a document sharing service. Basically, upload a document and you receive a link, and this link you can share to anyone that you want the document to view. Um, DocSend is a very popular service in this area, and I've chosen to build an open source alternative to DocSend because I, as a founder, used to use DocSend a lot to send pitch decks to investors and so on. And I thought it would be great to have an open source alternative for it.
Okay, nice. Why open source? Why not just another docs and just maybe some different feature and stuff like that?
I think there, open source has been pretty close to my heart for the last, I would say, like 8 years or so. Um, I've kind of started programming through open source and teaching myself and learning from other people's code, and especially with this evolution in JavaScript and TypeScript, so many more repos have become open source where learning for new developers has become really easy. And I wanted to give back a part of that to younger developers, that they can also see and learn from my code. But also on the other hand, I would, I like open source, and I saw open source as kind of a new distribution channel, a new growth channel in a way, to start with a community first and customers second.
Sounds really cool, and this is also what I support in most of the cases for open source. So today, Papermark has almost like more than 1.4K stars. What have you done? Like how did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, initially it started really with a product hunt launch. So we had, our our first product, kind of like we pushed it out on product hunt. It was like around September, and we really focused on writing a single tweet. So my following on Twitter at the time was about 1.5K, so not a massive amount, but still decent. And we focused still like, okay, we're going to push a single tweet that has a link to the product hunt launch. And it worked really well. It received tons of views. I think in total it was like close to 100,000 views now, 400 likes, etc. A lot of the open source community retweeted it. So it was like just the perfect storm, I would say.
That's really cool, and we already talked about it before. This tactic of, instead of sending the product hunt link, you send everywhere the Twitter link. Um, do you think this thing would also work today with the new Twitter algorithm, X algorithm?
Yeah, so I think I'm not sure. I haven't tried it out yet. Whether putting a link in the first tweet will still work the same. However, even if you don't do that, you can still push your tweet by DMing it to people that you trust in communities. I think X is not as restrictive as Hacker News or something like that, where they shadow ban you if too many people click on the direct link. So I think it's still a social network in a way that wants to propel engagement, and successful tweets will make it to the top. So I think the strategy will still work.
So let's really go into this whole launch. So first of all, did you send this link only to people on Twitter, or do you also send this Twitter link to people outside of Twitter? I guess back in the day, like, did you go to LinkedIn and send DM people? Here is the Twitter link.
Um, yes, also on LinkedIn, and also on Reddit, and also on um, I believe I also sent it in that first newsletter or email campaign, whatever you want to call it. So I definitely used that tweet wherever I could.
This is cool. And what was usually the CTA? Was it like, can you retweet, tweet, like, or do something with it? We always like from there, go to Product Hunt and upvote.
No, it was really just, all the focus of the support was on that single tweet, right? I didn't ask them like, hey, can you upvote us on Product Hunt? It was kind of like I guess psychologically there was like the effect that it had anyway, because they would see the tweet already in their DMs, they would click on it, and if they would like it, then they would naturally click on the link that's in the tweet. So if that person had replied positively to my DM and had liked or retweeted that tweet, then naturally they would also upvote on Product Hunt if they had an account.
And did you do it only with the people that you know that already following you, your friends and stuff, or you try to also outreach people outside of your community?
It was, I gotta say, it was mostly people that I either know already or followed already. And that was only because, otherwise my DM would land in, kind of like the second layer of DMs. And
Mhm.
people typically don't really check those. I mean, I check them, but also rarely. And then, yeah, the day would have passed. And so I focus on people that I kind of have a first connection with.
Cool. And would you do it? Did you do it also? You had another lunch lately. We'll keep on talking like the entire lunch week. But did you do the same thing for this lunch?
We didn't do it as extreme because it was not, the first launch. People kind of knew about Papermark already. So it was kind of more like a feature launch, and we decided, okay, this whole launch, we've got so much stuff going on. Let's not burn our resources on just that single product on launch. It still did really well, but the one strategy that was the same was we just wrote one tweet saying that we're live on Product Hunt, and start pushing that tweet everywhere.
And for the Product Hunt launch, can you maybe elaborate, like the first one, of course? What did you get from this in the end? Like, what was the end result of this launch? And also, what was your CTA? What was the did you talk mostly about the launch about open source, or did you talk about the product as a product?
There were kind of like two factors. I mean, obviously we wanted to push people to kind of like our GitHub repo and our open source project, to kind of like accelerate that and like get a couple more stars. I think we were just below like 1,000 stars at that time, maybe 800 or something like that. So it definitely pushed us over that like 1,000 limit, or hurdle. I think the biggest, however, was, getting that, I don't know, social proof of like becoming product of the day, like that number one badge. I know it sounds really silly, but it does add a little bit of credibility. Especially it's like a weekday launch. It's like there are a lot of people also launching on the same day, and yeah, just having your name out and kind of like getting that third party validation of like being the product of the day was really great and helpful. In terms of like hard metrics, we did grow to like really quickly to like, I would say to like 2,000 users or something. I don't have the exact numbers now, but like we hit sometime like towards the end of September. So we launched beginning of September. End of September, we hit like 2,000 users, I think. We got like a couple of customers, but that was like rather the exception. Like a lot of people use our tool for free, and still today. And yeah, only those who need to, either with a team or have specific like requirements, then they would upgrade to pay.
Do you think that the people that those 2,000 people that registered, some of them were like in the development world, developers, engineering stuff, or most of them are like not related at all to the field?
I would say yes. There are people that are related to kind of like, or that are developers themselves, and it's not uncommon, right? There's a lot of developers that are becoming kind of like the founders. There's technical founders that have a startup themselves. our initial pitch was like heavily towards kind of like startups and send your pitch deck. And that's kind of like what we went out with. And this as an open source platform, of course.
Okay, last question about the product hunt before we move forward. You've had two launches. The first one was like around the product. The second one was around a feature. Do you see this something that you will do repeatedly, like keep on doing product hunt launches for different features?
Yes. So in general, what I want to do, or what I was recommended to do for Product Hunt, was to do repeated launches, right? Every couple months, maybe 3 to 4 months or so, do a new launch, just to kind of like, there's these hub pages on Product Hunt where you get followers and where you get reviews, etc. on the product. And so every time you do a new launch, basically you have an advantage already, because every one of your existing hub followers will get a notification that, hey, a new product from Papermark has launched. So technically now I think we have like 1,500 or so followers there. So technically we should, activate all of these, followers with a new launch. I think you have to pick your feature and your market. I think AI was like super hyped in the last, probably half a year, especially in Product Hunt. It was like all AI stuff. So it was nice to launch something with AI as well. Going forward, I would not launch like Papermark Teams or something like that. It's too small of a feature. It has to be something big, or a separate product to the ecosystem. Otherwise, I wouldn't launch it.
You also use something hypey, like use AI. You didn't do a.
100%, 100%.
Nice. Product hunt worked pretty well for you. What next?
I think a month after Product Hunt, we decided to do a Hacker News. We didn't want to do it initially, like right after the Product Hunt launch, because we wanted to give it some breathing room. So we decided, okay, like sometime in October. And we posted like show HN, and it did okay. I'm not gonna say it like did amazing. When I posted it, I searched for Papermark on Hacker News first, and I saw that a couple other people had already posted it, not really successfully. Going forward, I think we'll try another couple of Hacker News launches until one hits, but point people more towards our GitHub repo instead of the launch page.
Cool. And was this launch on Hacker News? Did you mention anywhere about open source? Or it was like a general B2B kind of launch for Papermark?
So it was I mean, we did mention open source because it's kind of like the whole identity that we have. So kind of like the open source docs and alternative with custom domains. That's what we called it. I think you still have to, like with Hacker News, I don't know. I haven't really figured out the algorithm or what hits, what doesn't hit. I think it's just a lot of experimentation with wordings and titles and kind of like the links. So I think GitHub, my hypothesis is a GitHub link would perform better than a random URL.
I agree. I think in general, like Product Hunt is not so much for developer. Maybe the new Dev Hunt now that people developing will be, but this is like more for the main website, and actually Hacker News with all the other early adapters and stuff. So the Hacker News didn't go as well, but you haven't exhausted it. Like you're still keeping that show HN for the GitHub for some point. You haven't used it yet. When are you going
Yes.
to use it? And is it going to be a part of something bigger?
I already have the org account for Papermark. So yeah, in the starting January, I'll move it over to Papermark/Papermark essentially. And I think with that, it's kind of like ripe for a retry on Hacker News.
I know some people actually want it to be on their personal account because they feel it's like it feels let's say company corporate like. It's more of like a person, so it's like more personalized. So some people use it for when they just start.
Yeah, I mean, there is like really big, like especially in the JavaScript ecosystem or in the tooling ecosystem, there's really, really big projects that are still on personal handles. For example, there was one like Homebrew, macOS package manager. for I think 8 years, even though it had like millions of users already, it was still under like Max's handle, and only then he transferred it into like an org. And it's an ego thing, right? Like also like, oh, you have a big project under to your name, and it gets so many stars. But yeah, in the end, it'll be moved into an org, and that's the end of that story.
I think it's a game that you want to play. Like first, you want to attract more developers, so they look at you as more personal and stuff. But there's like free, let's call it free users, right? They're going to use the product and stuff, so it's a good way to start. But then once you get bigger and you want to make real deals, you want to be called a company, you want to close deals. Yeah, it looks not the best maybe if it's on your personal handle. So it's better to move into the corporate
Yeah, totally
handle.
true. Totally true.
So you have an open source, and it's totally open source always for developer totally, but your main website is not addressed as to developers, and you probably have this conflict a lot of times. You say, okay, I can keep on writing dev articles, but I will bring developers. But my end customers, when I talk to them, they don't even understand code. They're not there. What is your thoughts about this? Because I know a lot of company actually really grew nicely having those two, like cal.com, for example, that they have not a product for developers on the other side. What do you think about this?
The growth on GitHub, is certainly not over. And I've started to realize that we as an open source project should be the primary advocates for open source. And we've definitely, kind of like, it's taken a seat back in terms of priorities, because there was obviously a lot of launches and a lot of building. But now it's gonna, kind of like pick up, and we start kind of like adding more content, writing more in public, and pushing more our open source roots again.
Who do we solve the problem to? Do we solve the problem of the marketeer? Do we solve the problem of the product manager? Or do we solve the problem of the developer? And so people coming to you for an enterprise solution to self-host this. Now you've changed the narrative, because now the person that you're solving the problem to is the engineer.
Mm.
They need it to be self-host on their platform. So now you're not addressing all these product marketeers, founders that want to raise money, let's say. You're actually solving the engineer's problem, which is a good narrative to take. And I think in the next couple of months you will see more and more people coming for that specific things that you solve the problem to the engineer, not to the other people.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I also believe that.
What I've seen is that when you, let's say you create Papermark, right, and you create a website and everything, you can design it in a way that it looks like $1 million company. And so everybody that comes think, okay, how many people work on this project? Might be a very big project. But if you start a new Twitter account, let's say, with, I don't know, 10 followers, then they would immediately, once they go to this Twitter, they will say, okay, that's a small company. Nobody on Twitter. You just lose credibility immediately. And this is why actually I encourage sometimes people not to rush with opening a new Twitter account. Maybe even it's more personal to use your own kind of account and tweet from there. And it's obviously worked for you.
Even if, let's say there were 3 people that would have started Papermark right together, I would still prefer us to use our own social channels to amplify content and just, let's say the promotion of it, versus, a faceless corporate channel, which anyway is nobody loves on Twitter. Like corporate channels get the worst kind of interactions,
Of course.
except maybe Superbase. But even there,
operate there because they change the narrative there.
yeah.
So usually the problem is that this is like a known phrase. People connect to people; they don't connect to companies. This is why personal touch is usually better. But I've seen people that using this in different ways. So instead of making the company account like boring, this is the change log, here is the updates, what we've done, and stuff like that. And really, usually you always see like the algorithm doesn't like this. Also, it gets almost zero engagement usually in this kind of things. People do use the corporate account, let's say the company account, to retweet the founders' tweets a lot of the time, actually, and to tweet community stuff from different people. think it usually works better than just like a boring, this is the change log. This is what happened this week.
True. Yeah, exactly. When OpenAI released the Dolly integration in ChatGPT, where people said, okay, 10 likes and they'll make it, more funnier, more angrier, and more, more something. And people were totally hooked on this. So I think anything that involves people and kind of like makes it a game, gives you a game to play as an audience, and involves you in that way, is very interesting.
Interesting. Also, what you've done that worked for you pretty good is we call it like that. You didn't think about it like at that time, but memes marketing also worked pretty well, right?
Yeah, meme marketing, I like that. Yeah, it worked, although I'm like not super great at memes. I try, but I only had like one lucky shot, obviously, with one meme that got like 1 million+ impressions. That was right after King Charles's coronation.
It's great to grow your account. So if you can actually make the memes, not like a general meme, but somehow connect it a little bit to what you're doing or what you're planning to do and stuff, and you can get a massive amount of followers that in the next week will also help you out. And let's move to the last subject. You had a massive launch week. What it means to create a launch week? What is the difference between this and just a regular launch? And how much you need to plan this ahead?
Yeah, launch weeks. I mean, super popularized through Superbase. A couple years ago when they started doing launch weeks, and then since then, I think from bigger, from AWS to other startups have done launch weeks. It basically means you ship one feature per day for 5 days in 1 week. The goal of that is that you accumulate eyeballs basically on your account, on your tweets, on your name in the social sphere, not just for a single day, but for a whole week, right? People will retweet old tweets of the same week, etc.
This is good. Do you think that it created some kind of FOMO between the days because you had this launch week and you declared it as a launch week and people were waiting for these kind of things? Or it's just like it's nice, but it's not contributing that much. You could just not say it's a launch week and launch something every day.
There were definitely people waiting. Obviously, not as many as the Papermark account doesn't have any big following on Twitter. So it's like sub 500 followers. I pushed it also from my account. I think there were some people waiting, and I could see that by the rate of engagement, like once we tweeted the new day. But it also forced us to kind of deliver on the promise, right? I think that was more challenging and more interesting, and a better way to test that experiment. That it was as a forcing function to oh, okay, like you said you're gonna deliver. Okay, we didn't say exactly what feature we're gonna deliver, but we had to deliver something. And I think it's just these things that as builders, it's easy to promise and like easy not to deliver. And I think it's like a launch week is a great way to kind of like separate the ones that actually ship and the ones that don't. And today, like every day, we're shipping to production and like we're not announcing it. I should probably change that too, but it's definitely not these big features that would make you look. But then again, we also planned like 2 weeks before the actual launch week instead of 3 months before. But yeah, I would do it again. Not anytime soon, but I would definitely do a launch week again. I think it's a great way to activate the community in general. And again, as a nice side effect, all the things that we pushed, they worked in production, obviously because we tested them on staging, etc. But they worked in production, but they weren't fully rounded out, right? So we were missing, let's say, for the AI thing, right? You could activate the AI, but you could not deactivate the AI. So it gave an opportunity to contributors who saw obviously what we launched, and they were like, "Oh, you're missing, the deactivation, even though there's like a button for it, but it doesn't do anything. Let me just quickly built that feature out, and they pushed it like the next day, and it was deployed to production silently. And yeah, it's like this thing was really great. Like, again, attracted a lot more contributors, I think, in our stage than customers.
Still, I think it's a good approach. All right, we're talking a lot. I think people here got so much insights about things that they can do. Maybe before we finish and wrapping up, you can tell us, I don't know, some tip, tricks, anything that help you do what you do every day.
Wow, that's a good thing. I mean, Copilot for sure helps me write faster. Um,
Agreed.
no, I started drinking coffee recently again. I skipped coffee for 7 years,
Oh wow.
and I didn't notice that I was like not productive. But having started coffee, like not like every day, but like every second day or so, um, definitely was nice. Like a nice boost. Like you're a bit more alert. I don't know, not that I'm like recommending coffee for everyone, but it helped me personally. And then, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to best like time everything. I mean, there's a lot of PRs on an open source project, right? And it's really hard to kind of balance building versus reviewing. And I'm still trying to figure out what's the great balance. Currently, it's like typically like 1 day per week I like completely spent on reviewing pull requests, and whenever there's like a new update to an existingly reviewed pull request, um, I kind of like have a look at it. I also set up GitHub notifications to work for me nowadays. I just use the GitHub mobile app. Um, Before I was like relying on emails, and it was like just like a mess and all over the place. And now every morning I just look through the GitHub mobile. I have it like scoped so it only this is my project, and not any other project that I'm following. And then I can easily see, okay, what updates are there, and so on. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
I
helps.
can definitely agree that GitHub notification is very bad for something that you need notifications a lot.
Yeah,
They gotta improve it. They don't send you half of this. Like for half of the stuff, they don't even send notifications. So
yeah, I
yeah,
know. It's
there is a way to improve this whole thing. Mark, it was really, really, really great. Great. I learned a lot, um, even before because we already discussed most of the stuff. But it was super insightful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Nevo, for having me. I mean, you're doing a great job, kind of like, activating that community around GitHub and open source, and glad to be a part of it. And yeah, looking forward to the end result of this.
Awesome. Talk soon.
Talk soon, man. Bye.
Bye bye.